Hey, it's Huang Nan, and I am so glad you're here. Because today, we're diving deep into something that affects every single one of us, whether we realize it or not. We're embarking on a journey to uncover those sneaky, hidden psychological traps that are lurking in the corners of our minds, quietly influencing our decisions, our actions, and ultimately, our success. These aren't boogeymen or some rare affliction. They are part of being human. But understanding them is the first critical step to taking back control and truly unlocking your potential. Now, let me be crystal clear about something right up front. When I talk about these psychological traps, I'm not talking about mental illnesses. These are not diagnoses. These are common patterns of thinking, mental shortcuts. Psychologists call them cognitive biases that our brains use to make sense of the world quickly. The problem is, these shortcuts, while sometimes helpful, can often lead us down the wrong path, causing us to make mistaken decisions, miss incredible opportunities, and get stuck in ruts that feel impossible to escape. It's like your brain is trying to help, but it's got a faulty GPS. But here's the good news, the really exciting part. You can learn to spot these traps. You can learn to sidestep them, and you absolutely can overcome their influence. Throughout this video, I'm not just going to explain these traps. I'm going to share real stories, powerful examples of people just like you and me who recognized these patterns in their own lives, took action, and broke free to achieve remarkable success and create lives they truly love. So if you're ready to stop tripping yourself up and start building the life you deserve, you're in the right place. Let's get started. All right, let's talk about the first big one, confirmation bias. This is that sneaky little voice in your head that loves to say, "See, I told you so." It's our brain's tendency to actively seek out, interpret, favor, and recall information that confirms or supports our pre-existing beliefs or values. We all do it. We gravitate towards news sources that echo our opinions. We remember the times our hunches were right, and we conveniently ignore or downplay evidence that challenges what we already think is true. It feels good to be right, doesn't it? But this creates an information bubble, a dangerous echo chamber where your beliefs are constantly reinforced and dissenting views or new possibilities are shut out. Imagine a manager who believes a certain employee isn't cut out for a promotion. Because of confirmation bias, that manager will unconsciously look for evidence to support this belief. Maybe they'll focus on a minor mistake the employee made or interpret their quietness in meetings as a lack of initiative. They might overlook the employee's consistent hard work, their successful projects, or the positive feedback from colleagues. This isn't because the manager is a bad person. It's because their brain is wired to confirm what it already knows. The result? That talented employee gets overlooked, a potential leader is stifled, and the company misses out, all because of this hidden trap. You've got to actively fight this one. Next up is the anchoring trap, or anchoring bias. This one is all about the power of first impressions, especially when it comes to numbers or initial pieces of information. Our brains have this tendency to rely too heavily on the very first piece of information offered, the anchor, when making decisions. Once that anchor is set, we tend to interpret subsequent information around it, and it becomes incredibly difficult to move too far away from that initial point, even if it's completely arbitrary or irrelevant. Think about it. That first salary offer, the initial price on a car, the first estimate for a project, these numbers stick. Let's use a common example. Dress shopping. You walk into a boutique and the first dress you see has a price tag of $2,000. Whoa! That's your anchor. Suddenly, a dress priced at $500 seems like an absolute steal, a fantastic bargain, even if your original budget was $200. Your perception of expensive and reasonable has been skewed by that initial high anchor. This happens in negotiations, in financial planning, even in how we judge performance. That first impression, that first number, can subtly dictate the course of your decisions, often without you even realizing how much it's influencing your judgment. Being aware of this anchor is the first step to cutting the rope. Oh, the sunk cost trap. This one is a doozy, and it gets so many of us. This is when we continue a behavior or endeavor as a result of previously invested resources, time, money, or effort, even when it's clear that continuing is no longer the best decision. We think, I can't stop now, I've already put so much into this. It's that feeling of not wanting our past investments to go to waste. But here's the hard truth. Those resources are already gone. They are sunk. Making future decisions based on past unrecoverable investments is a recipe for throwing good money, or time, or energy after bad. The classic, albeit grand example is the story of the Concorde supersonic jet. Both the British and French governments knew, relatively early on, that the project was becoming economically unviable. The costs were astronomical, the market was shrinking, and the projections looked grim. But they had already invested so much money, so much national pride, so much political capital. To stop would mean admitting a colossal failure and wasting all that prior investment. So they pressed on, pouring more and more resources into it long after it was rational to do so. This trap doesn't just apply to billion-dollar projects, it applies to staying in a dead-end job, a failing relationship, or a business venture that's clearly not working, all because of what you've already put in. Okay, let's tackle a pair of troublemakers, the over-optimism trap and its close cousin, the overconfidence trap. Over-optimism is our tendency to be, well, unrealistically optimistic about future events. We overestimate the likelihood of positive outcomes and underestimate the likelihood of negative ones. We think we're less at risk of experiencing misfortune than others. Then there's overconfidence, where we overestimate our own abilities, knowledge, and the accuracy of our judgments. We think we're better, smarter, or more skilled than we actually are, or that we have more control over events than we do. It's a potent, and honestly, often dangerous combination. Think about the smoker who knows the health risks, sees the warnings, but genuinely believes, it won't happen to me. I'll be fine. I can quit anytime. That's over-optimism shielding them from the reality of the danger, and perhaps overconfidence in their ability to control their addiction or their body's resilience. This isn't just about smoking. It's about underestimating the risks in a new business venture because you're so sure of your idea, or not preparing adequately for an exam because you're overconfident in your knowledge. While a healthy dose of optimism and confidence is definitely essential for success, this over-the-top version can cause us to ignore crucial warnings, take foolish risks, and fail to prepare for very real possibilities. Now, this next one, learned helplessness, is honestly heartbreaking because it can absolutely crush potential. This psychological trap occurs when a person has experienced a stressful situation repeatedly, typically failure or a lack of control, and they come to believe that they are incapable of changing the situation, so they just stop trying. Even when opportunities for change or success become available, they don't take them. They've learned to be helpless. It's like their motivation and initiative have been completely drained away by past negative experiences. This isn't laziness, it's a conditioned response. I remember a story about a student who, after failing a couple of difficult math tests early in the semester, just gave up. Even when the teacher offered extra help, even when later topics were ones she might have excelled at, she wouldn't engage. She'd already decided, I'm just bad at math. Nothing I do will make a difference. She had internalized those initial failures to such an extent that she couldn't see a path forward, even when one was right there. She was stuck in a cycle of expecting failure, and so she inadvertently created it. Recognizing this pattern is the first step to unlearning it and reclaiming your agency, your power to try, and your power to succeed. All right, let's talk about imposter syndrome. This is that persistent nagging feeling of being a fraud, of not deserving your accomplishments, despite all evidence to the contrary. People experiencing imposter syndrome often feel like they've somehow tricked everyone into thinking they're competent, and they live in constant fear of being found out. It's incredibly common, especially among high achievers. You could have a wall full of awards, a string of successes, and still, that quiet, insidious voice whispers, "You're not good enough. You just got lucky." Any moment now, they'll realize you don't belong here. Even someone as accomplished and celebrated as Emma Watson has openly talked about her struggles with imposter syndrome. Despite her incredible success as an actress, her work as a UN Women Goodwill Ambassador, and her academic achievements, she's admitted to feeling like an imposter, questioning her own abilities and worthiness. This shows that this isn't about actual competence. It's about a disconnect between your achievements and your internal feeling of deserving them. It can lead to overworking to prove yourself, shying away from new challenges for fear of exposure, and a constant state of anxiety. Understanding that this is a common psychological experience, not a reflection of your true abilities, is key to quieting that voice. Fear of failure. This one is a giant, and it stops so many brilliant people dead in their tracks. It's more than just a little worry about things not working out. It can be a paralyzing fear that prevents you from taking any risks at all, even calculated ones that could lead to huge rewards. The what-ifs become overwhelming. What if I invest and lose everything? What if I try and embarrass myself? What if I'm not good enough and everyone sees? This fear isn't just about the potential for actual loss. It's often tied to our ego, our self-worth, and how we imagine others will perceive us if we stumble. I know of a young entrepreneur who had a truly innovative idea, a game changer for his industry. He'd done the research, built a prototype, even had potential investors showing interest. But the fear of failure, the fear of losing the security of his current job, the fear of his idea not being as perfect as he envisioned, completely consumed him. He kept tweaking, kept delaying, kept waiting for the perfect moment that never came. He was so afraid of losing what he had, or of not meeting expectations, that he missed out on a golden opportunity. The investors moved on, the market shifted, and his brilliant idea remained just that, an idea. Fear of failure can be the biggest dream killer if you let it. Negative thinking and its close anxiety-inducing cousin, overthinking. These two often go hand in hand, creating a vicious cycle that can be incredibly hard to break. Negative thinking is when your mind defaults to the worst-case scenario, focusing on the downsides, the potential problems, and your own perceived flaws. Overthinking, then, takes these negative thoughts and puts them on an endless loop, analyzing every tiny detail, replaying past mistakes, and worrying excessively about future what-ifs. It's like having a hamster wheel in your brain that you just can't get off. Think about someone preparing for a job interview. A little nervousness is normal, but if negative thinking takes over, they start thinking, I'm not qualified enough. I'll probably mess up the questions. They won't like me. Then overthinking kicks in. They obsess over every possible question, rehearse answers until they sound robotic, imagine every way they could fail, and lose sleep replaying past interview blunders. By the time the actual interview arrives, they're a bundle of stress and self-doubt, which ironically makes them perform poorly, thus confirming their negative thoughts. This mental churn doesn't lead to better solutions. It leads to anxiety, inaction, and missed opportunities because you're too busy fighting battles in your own head. Let's talk about a trap that is so pervasive in our hyper-connected, social media-driven world: comparing yourself to others. Theodore Roosevelt famously said, "Comparison is the thief of joy," and he was absolutely right. When you constantly measure your life, your achievements, your looks, your possessions, your anything against others, you're setting yourself up for dissatisfaction and unhappiness. There will always be someone who appears to have more, do more, or be more. This constant keeping up with the Joneses mentality, amplified by curated online personas, can erode your self-esteem and make you lose sight of your own unique path and progress. I remember a young artist, incredibly talented, with a wonderfully unique and quirky style. When she first started, she painted with such passion and joy, creating pieces that were truly her own. But then she started spending hours online looking at other artists, particularly those who were getting more likes or selling more work. She began to compare her art, her follower count, her perceived success. Slowly, her style started to change, becoming more like what she thought was popular, losing its original spark. The joy she found in creating diminished, replaced by anxiety and a feeling of inadequacy. She lost her unique voice by trying to echo others, all because she fell into the comparison trap. The scarcity mindset, well, it's this belief that there's only a limited pie out there, like resources, opportunities, success, and even happiness are all finite. So if someone else gets a piece, there's just less left for you. This kind of thinking, honestly, it fosters a sense of competition instead of collaboration, makes people want to hoard rather than share, and it kind of leads to fear instead of abundance. People who have a scarcity mindset often feel anxious about what they don't have. They're reluctant to celebrate others' successes because it can feel like those wins somehow diminish their own chances. And, yeah, they can be really resistant to change or taking risks because they're afraid they might lose what little they think they have. This mindset can be so limiting. Just think about a small business owner who operates from a scarcity mindset. They might refuse to collaborate with other local businesses just because they're worried about losing customers. Or they might hesitate to invest in training for their employees, focusing on the cost instead of seeing the potential for growth. Sometimes, they even obsess over every penny saved, even if it means cutting corners that, in the long run, hurt their quality or customer service. This not enough mentality, it really prevents them from seeing the bigger picture. Collaboration can actually expand the market for everyone. Investing in people leads to innovation, and sometimes you just need to spend money to make money. When they're too focused on guarding their tiny slice of a pie, they totally miss out on growth and connection, not realizing that pie could actually be so much bigger. Self-sabotaging behaviors, they're tricky. This is when, often unconsciously, we do things that block our own success and well-being. It sounds counterintuitive, right? Why would anyone intentionally mess up their own chances? But it happens all the time. It can stem from fear of success. Yes, that's a real thing. Fear of failure, low self-worth, or a deeply ingrained belief that we don't deserve good things. Self-sabotage can show up in countless ways. Procrastination, perfectionism that leads to never finishing anything, picking fights in healthy relationships, substance abuse, or making impulsive, destructive decisions right when things are starting to go well. Think about a writer who has a fantastic book idea, maybe even a contract offer, but they just can't seem to sit down and write. They find endless distractions. They suddenly need to reorganize their entire office. They convince themselves they need more research or more time. This procrastination isn't just laziness. It's often a form of self-sabotage. Perhaps deep down, they're terrified of putting their work out there and facing criticism. Or maybe they're scared of the changes success might bring to their life. So, by not writing, they unconsciously protect themselves from those fears, but in doing so, they block their own dream. It's a painful cycle, and recognizing these patterns is the first step to breaking them. Let's tackle the status quo trap, also known as the comfort zone trap. This is our natural human tendency to prefer things to stay as they are, to resist change, and to stick with what's familiar, even if the familiar isn't optimal or is actually holding us back. Change can feel risky, uncomfortable, and honestly, it takes effort. Our brains are wired to conserve energy, so doing things the way we've always done them often feels like the easiest, safest path. The problem is, in a world that is constantly evolving, clinging to the status quo can lead to stagnation, missed opportunities, and eventually, obsolescence. Consider a well-established tech company that had dominated its market for years. They had their successful products, their established processes, their loyal customer base. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, was their unofficial motto. But then, new, nimbler startups began to emerge with innovative technologies and different business models. The established company, caught in the status quo trap, was slow to react. They were hesitant to invest in new, unproven areas, afraid to cannibalize their existing successful products, and resistant to changing their internal culture. By clinging to the old ways that had once brought them success, they lost their competitive edge, their market share dwindled, and they became a cautionary tale of what happens when you fear change more than you embrace progress. So we've talked about all these traps, but the big question is, what do you do about them? The key to overcoming them and building lasting success isn't some magic bullet. It's about actively developing a toolkit of mental strategies. First, cultivate a growth mindset like Sarah, who saw failures as learning opportunities, not dead ends, and eventually launched her dream bakery. Use cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, techniques to challenge and reframe negative thoughts, just like David did to overcome his public speaking anxiety and totally nail his presentations. Practice mindfulness like Emily, who learned to observe her thoughts without judgment, which helped her reduce stress and improve her focus at work. And critically, learn to embrace imperfection, like Chloe, an artist who finally shared her work, flaws and all, and found a deeply appreciative audience, realizing that progress really is better than perfection. But it doesn't stop there. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle, good sleep, nutrition, exercise is fundamental. Just ask Alex, who found his energy and clarity skyrocketed once he prioritized his physical well-being, which totally boosted his productivity. Set meaningful goals that align with your values, like Jessica, who left a high-paying but unfulfilling job to start a nonprofit and found true purpose. Build strong, supportive relationships. Michael, an entrepreneur, credits his success to his network of mentors and peers who offered guidance and encouragement through tough times. And never ever be afraid to seek professional support when needed. Olivia, who was struggling with deep-seated imposter syndrome, found therapy invaluable in rebuilding her self-worth and confidently stepping into a leadership role. These aren't just stories, they are blueprints for you. All right, we've covered a lot today, and I really hope you're feeling empowered, not overwhelmed. Remember, mastering your mind, sidestepping these psychological traps, and building the success you desire is not a one-time event. It's a continuous journey. There will be days when you slip up, when an old thought pattern rears its head, and that's okay. That's part of being human. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress, consistent effort, and a commitment to understanding yourself better each day. So, what's next? I want you to start small. Pick one trap, one strategy we talked about today, and focus on that. Maybe it's noticing your confirmation bias or challenging just one negative thought. Persevere daily. Little by little, these small steps compound into massive change. Most importantly, believe in your incredible potential for growth and transformation. You are not defined by these traps. You are defined by your courage to face them and your commitment to becoming the best version of yourself. You have everything you need within you to make profound changes. Because ultimately, success isn't some fixed destination you arrive at. It's not just about the accolades or the bank account. True, lasting success is about the person you become along the way. It's about building resilience, cultivating self-awareness, and showing up authentically in your life. It's about becoming the best, most fulfilled, most impactful version of yourself. And that journey, my friend, starts right now with the very next decision you make. Go out there and be amazing. I'm cheering you on.